Welcome to the Happy Hour Podcast. I'm Shannon.
And I'm Nathan.
And we are your hosts sharing our crazy lives here on the ranch with you.
We're husband and wife, and we're going to chat with y'all about what's happening here at the ranch, in the world, and whatever else we're fixating on.
And our goal is to share our journey, some laughs, and maybe we'll all learn a little something along the way too.
Welcome to Happy Hour Podcast, and buckle up.
Hey guys, it's Shannon here, and today I thought I would throw together a super quick podcast on something that I get asked about a lot, and that is about my book. If you didn't know, I have a book called Surrender, and it is really about learning how to release control over certain things, exploring the dark side of humanity and ourselves, releasing old habits, and creating a life filled with purpose. And it became a bestseller a few years ago. And so I have people who ask me about it. How did it happen? I get people all the time who are interested in writing a book, and I love it. I love all of it. So I thought I would spend some time just talking about the process of writing a book, myths and unrealistic expectations, what to expect, and all that good stuff. So that being said, let's get started. First of all, I have to say, if you are at all thinking about writing a book, the very first question I ask is why? Like, why do you want to write a book? I want you to think about that for just a minute if you are at all contemplating writing a book. Like, why? What is your why? Your true, at the heart of the matter, why? Why do you want to write a book? And here's what I will say are some of the top responses, and then my response to them. One of the whys is to make money. I'm going to stop you right there and tell you don't bother. Don't bother. You can make money from your book, but it's actually not from the book itself. And I'll explain that in a minute. But if you think you're going to write a book and the book itself is going to make you money, honestly, it's not worth the effort, the time, the commitment, the investment, and the hassle, if I'm being honest. It's just writing books in themselves is not necessarily a moneymaker. It can be. I don't want to dissuade you completely. Obviously, there's some amazing authors out there that are making a living off of their book only, but that is usually not the case. So if your answer is you want to share your life story, that's a great why. If your answer is you want to share some teachings, that's a great why. If your answer is you want to create credibility in your job and who you are and what you do, that's a great why. So those are just some samples of some whys that I've been given and my response to them. And also keep in mind, this is just me, one author, one published author. My husband also has 5 published books, and we've gone both traditional publishing and self-publishing. So this is just our perspective. It doesn't have to be your perspective, and you'll get different perspectives, I'm sure, from different authors. So understand that. So what to expect? Like if you're committed, you know your why, you feel good about your why, regardless of what it is, what do you expect? The biggest thing to expect is a time commitment. That's your biggest investment. Whether you do traditional publishing, if someone picks you up, or you do self-publishing, actually more than money is going to be your time commitment. Most books for an average writer takes at least a year. Mine took a lot longer than that. I think each of Nathan's books took about a year, my husband Nathan, but they take about a year. Some people can do it less, but really if you're doing a high quality written book, it's going to take about a year. The other investment, believe it or not, that most people don't talk about is the emotional investment. There is a lot of things that happen inside of you as a human being as you write a book. It doesn't even matter what the book is. It could be very deep and self-help book. It could be a business book. It could be a book about, I don't know, building cars. It doesn't matter. Whatever the book is, there's an emotional investment that happens. You are putting yourself out there. You are putting your thoughts, your beliefs, your learnings, your experiences on paper for the world to potentially see. There's a lot that goes on in there. It actually changes you. And some people are not prepared for that. Some people give up, a quarter of the way through, halfway through, because of this, because of 1, the time commitment, and 2, the emotional commitment. So those are 2 big things that I just feel like sometimes gets like blown to the side, and they shouldn't be, or not even talked about, to be honest with you. So if you want to write a book, you feel good about your why, know that you've got a huge time commitment and an emotional commitment as well. All right, let's talk about myths and unrealistic expectations when it comes to writing a book. The first myth is that you should be an expert in the field that you're writing about. And this is probably counterintuitive than what you are thinking, but I just don't believe that. I think you have to know more than your reader, right? Than your audience. You have to obviously have done more steps or learn more things that you can share with someone who's done none of those things or is just starting in those things. So I do believe you have to know more, but it doesn't mean you have to know all. And who really does know all? I like to say, I think it's in the very front of my book, is I'm an expert on nothing and no one except for myself, and barely that, right? And so you do not have to be an absolute expert in order to write a book. That's the first myth. The next myth is you have to be special to write a book. And I am just going to say, I am no one special other than to myself. Okay. Like I'm your average gal. I really am. I work hard. I have passion for what I do. I love what I do. I feel like I'm a great person. I'm generous, all those wonderful things. I am not at all taking away from who I am as a human being, but I'm no special than you listening to this, right? You do not have to be some special human being. You don't have to be a monk that sits on the mountain for years on end to talk about meditation and how important that is. So anyway, you don't have to be this special anomaly. And yes, you guys, we're all special in some way. All right. A couple of unrealistic expectations, I will say. The first one is you're going to sell millions of copies. Probably not. Probably not. The average fiction writer sells like 250 copies a year in their first year and then 2,000 in a lifetime, believe it or not. And that's okay. That's 2,000 people that writer touched. And so you're probably not going to sell millions of books. I'm not trying to poo-poo. There might be someone listening that is going to go write a book and they're going to sell 1 million books. That's amazing. But most people won't. And then the other one is that you're going to be a New York Times bestseller. So there's such a misconception about this. I think people think that when you're a New York Times bestseller, it's because you sold a lot of books to get there. And that's actually not true. You paid a lot of money to get there. That's how that works. Just do some Google searches on how to get to New York Times bestseller list and you'll figure that out real quickly. So it takes a lot of money and investment and time and energy in order to get to the New York Times bestseller list. And the truth is, if you think about right now, some of your favorite books, your very favorite books, are they New York Times bestsellers? Do you even know? It's not as important as people think it is. Yes, my book became a bestseller, not a New York Times bestseller, but it became a national bestseller in a particular retail store. That can happen, certainly. But as far as being a New York Times bestseller list, I think that is a little bit of a misconception. It can happen, but rarely does it happen. Rarely does it happen on just the sales of a particular book. It usually is a bought thing. So, all right. You've heard all my what to expect, whys, myths, and unrealistic expectations, and you still want to write a book. So let's talk about it. I'm going to go through what I feel like is a good process. Again, this is just my process, but here's what I would do.
Hey guys, it's Shannon. I'm just going to interrupt for just a second to ask you for a big favor. Will you pause right now and go leave us a review if you haven't already? Or if you're not subscribed, maybe click that little plus button. We are so appreciative.
Well, first of all, you're going to decide, are you going to try to pitch it to a publisher? Because what I'm going to talk about next is mostly for self-publishing. If you're going to pitch it to a publisher, you don't need to do all of these steps necessarily. You really just need to write a sample chapter. You got to do a marketing plan. You got to do research. You got to put together a whole proposal and then pitch it to a publisher. There's templates out there you can find on Google to do that. You can also work with an agent, a publishing agent, and they can help you with all of that process, depending upon your idea, your audience size, how big of a following you have. Like there's all these different things as whether or not an agent will even work with you and whether or not a publisher will publish you these days. I would say the majority of published books nowadays are self-published. So anyway, so that's one thing. I'm going to now go through what I consider to be the steps to take to do the self-published method, which by the way, a self-published book can still be picked up by a publisher later on. That was my husband's first book. The very first book he did, he self-published and then a publisher picked it up after it did so well in sales. And then his second book was by Penguin Publishers, one of the biggest publishers. And then we realized how much we preferred self-publishing and we've done the the following books self-published instead of with a traditional publisher. And there's all kinds of reasons as to why. One of the biggest ones is you have more control over your book. And if you are talking about money, you'll make more money on the book, but not right away because it's cost you more money to publish it, obviously. But the money is not really our biggest thing when we're publishing books. It really is about the control of the book, how it looks, how it feels, how it presents, the exact wordings. And when you work with a traditional publisher, they have all the control over all the things. So typically, especially if it's your first or second book. All right, how to start. First thing you got to figure out is, what is your central message? What do you want the reader to learn, know, or experience, right? The next thing is a chapter outline. Super simple. How are you going to outline this message? How does it flow? Is it going to be sections? Is it going to be chapters? Is it going to be sections and chapters? How is it going to look? Then you're going to write the book. They say there's lots of things out there that say aim for about 250 words a day-ish. So I don't know, to be honest with you, when you feel really creative, just write until you stop feeling creative. That's how my husband and I do it. We actually get away typically for a weekend and we write. We write. We then read each other's stuff, offer feedback, thoughts, and then we write. Once you've done that, once you feel like you've done your message, your outline, and you've written your book, then you're going to self-edit first. First and always, you're going to go through it with a fine-tooth comb and look for all the obvious things and then just messaging you want to change. If there's someone you trust, you can have them also help you self-edit. And then I highly, highly recommend you hire a professional editor to do the finish off of the editing process. I don't care how good, this isn't about grammar at this point. This isn't about spelling and grammar at all. This is about how the finished product will read to your audience. So important. Have to hire a professional editor to do that. Once you've done that, then it's time to get the layout, which I also highly recommend that you hire a professional designer to lay out your book. Because nowadays you can choose to publish in different ways. You can publish the traditional printing, and you can also self-print or hire a printer, but you have to have a certain layout for the print. You have to have a certain layout for the ebook versions, like the Kindles and the Apple books and all that type of stuff. And then there's Audible or audio. So there's 3 different ways to deliver your book. As far as professionally delivering it, yes, you can send it out as a PDF as well. That's a whole nother thing. That's not really what I'm talking about for this podcast. So you want to hire a designer to lay out your book, to lay it out in the print way, to lay it out in the e-version way. And then also when you have your professional editor do the final editing, there may be an Audible or audio recording version that, has a little bit different language. Because when you, like right now, I'm recording this verbally. If I were to write an article about this or a blog post about this, it would read a little different. So you want to make sure your professional editor gives you a audio recorded version and the print recorded version as well. So got your layout done. Next is the cover design. Listen, Canva is awesome. There's some awesome things that you can do online yourself. And can you create your own book cover? Absolutely. Do I recommend it? Absolutely not. I recommend hiring a professional to design your book cover. One of my favorite places to go is 99 Designs, but also you can go to Upwork. There's just all kinds of different platforms where you can hire a contractor to professionally design your cover. And what you'll want is you want a cover for print, you want a cover for ebook, and you want a cover for Audible or audio version, because there are 3 different layouts completely. And so it's important to do that. And they have different especially on 99 Designs, they have different packages you can buy that include all of that, as well as social media images and stuff like that. So cover design, super important. And within that cover design will include like your title, subtitle, description, author bio, all that stuff that would go into the cover. So if you work with a good designer, they can help you with that, or your editor that you hired could help you with that, getting all of that stuff looking nice and pretty for a cover. Because let's be honest, y'all. Here's why I'm super adamant about having a professional cover done. When you go to a bookstore and you don't know the author, are you not buying it for the cover? I am. Like, I see a really bitchin' cover and I'm like, oh my gosh, I want that book. I probably don't even know what it is exactly yet, but the cover just draws me in. And so a cover is so, so important. Whether you're selling online only, whether you actually hit bookstores, wherever you decide you're going to distribute your book, if it's just on your website, it still has to have a sexy, engaging, intriguing cover.
Hey, it's Shannon here. Do you want to know my number one secret to feeling good, including helping to ease my anxiety and stress? Yoga. I know, don't roll your eyes. But seriously, one of the best things I did for myself over a decade ago was delve deep into the rich yoga philosophy, history, and practices, which provided some incredible tools for healthy living, as well as inviting so much peace and joy into my life. And at the time, I had no intention of teaching yoga. I did it purely for me, to find love and acceptance of myself and the world around me, and I did. Of course, the training can also help if you want to then share the gift of yoga with others. All that to say, did you know that we now offer a yoga teacher training, including a 100% online option so that you can go completely at your own pace? Our online platform is bursting with so many incredible resources, including videos, workbooks, templates, and more. Plus, we have optional weekly live sessions and the ability to add on a 4-day in-person retreat right here at the ranch. Not to mention, you get access to the content for life, including our graduates who get to continue to attend the live sessions, if they want, to get CE credits too. So with affordable pricing, a convenient monthly payment option if you like, and the ability to go at your own pace, this is seriously the perfect time to join a community of incredible support, love, and learning. I did it for me, and I'd love to see you do it for you. To find out more, visit mindbodycomplete.com, then click trainings right at the top. All right. By the way, one of the things I didn't mention when we talked about writing, I talked about how, you have to do this. You're doing this time investment, this emotional investment, and you're writing these 250 words a day or whenever you feel creative. There is another option instead of you writing it, and that's ghostwriting. It is expensive. Publishing your own book can go anywhere from $1,000 to $100,000, literally. It depends on how involved you are. One of the big expenses can be a ghostwriter. A ghostwriter can come in different levels. You could do full ghostwriting, which means you tell them your story verbally, they write the entire book and from start to finish. Another ghostwriter is something that I did for my book, which is I wrote the whole book and then I asked the ghostwriter to come in and make it sound prettier in some ways, or add some more content where I was missing content or lacking in a certain way. And so I had an awesome ghostwriter, Emilio Travis. She's amazing. And she came in and helped me just, again, take what I had, the content that I had that took me years to create, and she made it sound amazing. Because if it was just my writing, it may not have been as engaging. Let's just put it that way. So there's different levels of ghostwriting. Someone who completely writes it, and then someone who aids you in writing it. And the cost will be reflective based upon what type of ghostwriter you hire, if you choose to go that way. So it kind of depends on what you want to do. So you're self-publishing now. Let's say you've decided you're self-publishing and we've gotten through all these steps. We've done the book, we've done the layout, the editing, the design, the cover, all that stuff. And now we're like, okay, what's next? The next steps are obviously some just logistical stuff. You got to get an ISBN number. You got to get your UPC for your book. Once your book is actually formed and you have like a published copy, you have to send a published copy to the Library of Congress. So those are just like logistical steps to do. What you also have to decide is how your book is going to be distributed. Amazon obviously has a great format for someone who just gets it all designed and then they want print on demand. You are not making money on this print on demand, okay? But it's an option. Print on demand, it's in there. The ebook version and the audio version, all you do is upload it into the platforms. You create an account in the Amazon sections. They have their own sections for it. I think it's AXC or ACX for the Audible. I can't remember. You just have to Google it. But anyway, you just upload everything. Your design cover, the files, if you've gone through and recorded them, you could do yourself for the audio version. You can record it all yourself. I highly recommend you have an editor edit it, but you can do it yourself. All the instructions are on these platforms, by the way. And then you just upload it. There's no cost to that. You just literally upload it once you've gotten all the files done. Same thing with your ebook. You've got the ebook cover and you've got the ebook design layout. You just upload it. And you're done. It's that easy. It's the print version that you have to put a little more thought to. Do you want to do the print on demand where it's a book, it's there, they say purchase it, it takes a little bit longer because it's print on demand and you're not really making any money on it, but it's a great tool
a great way for people to get your book. The other option for printing is that you hire a printing company. This one's way more expensive up front. So for instance, you contact a printing company. There's printing companies all over the world, and you find out the cost for your book. You send them the design, your layout, you send them the cover so that they can then send you a quote. It would cost you this much to print this many books, et cetera, and so forth. And you decide, do you want to spend $5,000 to print so many books, $10,000, whatever may be the case, to print your books. And then you make a whole lot more per book when you do it that way, but you're also putting a whole lot more money up front. And so you kind of have to decide which direction you want to go. I don't know that there's a right or wrong direction. It just depends on the why, right? I know I mentioned at the beginning that if your why is to make money, don't do it. But here's the exception to that. When it comes to a book, if it is also tied to your business, it may benefit your business in sales. So for instance, my book, complete transparency, I don't make very much money per book at all, if any, to be honest with you, because by the time Amazon takes their cut or the retailers take their cut, it's like cents on the dollar. That's totally fine. But what happens is people read my book and then they're curious about the offerings that I have. They might sign up for a retreat. They might come do one of my online programs, whatever may be the case. I get business from my book that's not the actual book. Does that make sense? So I'm not making money on the book, but I'm making money in my business from the book. And that is how it works from a business standpoint, if that's what your goal is. If your goal has nothing to do with making money, perfect. That's totally fine too. But I think the why and the goal of the book will determine how you go about publishing and printing and approaching this whole thing. You have to kind of lay it all out and see what makes sense for you. If your goal is not to make money on the actual book at all, like that's not your goal, then print on demand is totally fine, right? It just depends. It really, really depends. I think, for us, for Nathan and I, we actually have a whole self-publishing setup. No, we don't do self-publishing for anybody else, but we have a whole self-publishing setup now. And we do print our books ourselves with a printing company. We do it all ourselves, but we just have a setup that it goes really smooth and we know what we're doing. And we have retailers that work with us, and we have a distribution channel that we've built up over the years. And so it makes sense for us to go that way. For the first time person, the first time author, print on demand is a great option. So hopefully I didn't make it more confusing for y'all. Hopefully I kind of laid it out a little bit, what to expect when you're thinking about doing a book. I think, like I said, you'll get different responses from different authors. For Nathan and I, going through the process of writing the book is an ass whip, but it all comes together and it becomes a joyful thing for us as we look at this final product. And also when we get response from readers who tell us about how it changed them in certain ways, whether it's in their business or their life and their thinking and their experiences, whatever may be the case. So that really ties into our why and why we do what we do when it comes to books. Well, there you are. There's my 2 cents on it. Feel free to ask questions if you'd like about any of the particulars that I gave. And if you are hankering and have a book in your heart, maybe it's time to go do that. Take care, y'all.
Thanks for listening to the Happy Hour Podcast. If you'd like to learn more, visit us online at www.happyhourpodcast.org.
And you're welcome.